Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Total Health with Dr. Cage. I am Dr. Cage. I am a retired naturopathic physician and acupuncturist, as well as an author, lecturer, nutrition industry consultant, an energy medicine expert, and a martial arts instructor. The title of today's episode is The True Science of Your Immune System. This is episode number 2 in my newly launched podcast series, which is based on the live on-air radio talk show of the same name I used to have when I lived in Southern California. My goal is to provide valid information about your health and the world we live in. Information that in most cases you won't be hearing from your conventional medical doctors nor in the mainstream media. One of the extremely important subjects you're simply not hearing about in the news today, nowhere in the mainstream media, is the true science of your immune system and how it functions. In fact, if your only source of information about health the last 2 years has been the mainstream media, you might not even know you have an immune system. So without being concerned with anything else going on in the world today, I'm going to start with the basics. Your immune system. We live in a world where we and everything else here has to eat in order to survive. From the largest creatures on down to the smallest, which are single-celled organisms, everything must eat other creatures in order to survive. While our natural fears about what might eat us are the big things, the lions and tigers and bears, it's far more common for each of us to be attacked by the small things. Bacteria and fungi, such as molds and yeasts, are much more likely to be our attackers. These small organisms want to eat us, and they will also live in our bodies. They subsist on us in a parasitic manner. Historically, far more people have died as a result of these tiny creatures, too small to be seen with the naked eye, than have ever been killed by the large predators like wolves or saber-toothed tigers. There was a long period of time when these mysterious illnesses and plagues would strike down people, often quickly. Their cause was largely unknown. Eventually, sanitation and hygiene measures proved to be far more effective against these mystery illnesses than anything the conventional medical system at that time could offer. Cleaning up water sources so raw sewage was not mixed with drinking water. Cleaning up trash dumps to eliminate or reduce rats, which were found to carry disease. Washing hands when preparing food or when treating patients. These were all things found to contribute towards getting sick, or towards not getting sick. Well, the microscope, the scientific tool that allows us to see very small objects, was invented in the mid-1600s. The textbooks with microscopic findings of single-celled creatures were on the part of the top scientific literature of that day. The medical system throughout the mid-1600s and 1700s and early 1800s ignored these findings. They continued to follow their business as usual for more than 200 years after the microscope was invented, and all that time people were dying needlessly. A Hungarian physician and surgeon named Ignaz Semmelweis in the mid-1800s found that having doctors change out of dirty aprons and clothes and wash their hands prior to delivering babies led to about a 90% reduction in the cases of puerperal fever among delivering mothers. He claimed that a mysterious substance, too small to be seen with the naked eye, was being transferred to the mothers by the doctors themselves, and this was what was killing them. Despite the evidence that his methods were saving lives, Semmelweis was declared insane and sentenced to an insane asylum. Unfortunately, he would later die there of an infection. Later, Joseph Lister, a Scottish doctor in Glasgow, read about Semmelweis and implemented similar cleanliness standards in his hospital. He was highly successful at preventing infections, especially after surgery. Fortunately for the rest of the world, Lister was not declared insane, and in fact, the modern antiseptic Listerine is actually named after him. One interesting fact from this historical period of infectious illnesses that I find quite fascinating comes from the stories of the Black Plague. The Black Plague, also known as the Black Death, and in modern times as the bubonic plague, killed about 1/3 of the population of Europe. However, virtually everyone in Europe would have been exposed to it, which means the Black Plague failed to kill 2/3 of the population. What was the difference? What was different between the 1/3 who died and the 2/3 who survived exposure to the Black Plague, which is still the deadliest infectious illness we know of in the recorded history of humanity? In short, it was their immune system. That naturally leads to the question, so what exactly is your immune system? By comparison, when asked, most people would probably have a pretty good idea of what constitutes our digestive system: the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, and intestines, and its job is to digest the food we eat and eliminate wastes. Most people would probably know that our cardiovascular system is made up of our heart and blood vessels, and that the main job is to bring oxygen and nutrients to all the cells of our body. But the immune system. Most people walking the street probably have little to no knowledge over what makes up your immune system or how it functions. I say this because in all the years I was in clinical practice, working with patients one-on-one, this was an area that was among the most commonly misunderstood. If you already read my book, Heal Your Life, Heal the World, specifically Chapter 7, then you may now count yourself among those more informed about the immune system. What I describe in the book in more detail than I can possibly go into in this short podcast today is mostly old news. What I mean by this is that most of the detailed knowledge of our immune system is old science. We've known it for the last 50 to 75 years or more. Yes, of course, new discoveries are coming out regularly, as they should be in any legitimate field of scientific research. The vast majority of what I'm about to present, however, isn't the new stuff. The main purpose of our immune system is to defend us against those other organisms, mostly the small ones, that want to live in us, that want to eat us, and whose presence will cause diseases in us. These tiny creatures, organisms whose presence cause disease, are collectively referred to as pathogenic microorganisms. Pathos is the Greek word for disease. Genic means to cause or generate. Micro means small, and organism is the word for any form of life. Thus, we have tiny organisms who cause disease, pathogenic microorganisms. I'm going to start by referring to two very broad general categories of the immune system. These are the specific immune system and the non-specific immune system. Non-specific immunity involves our body making the same response to any potential pathogenic invader. It includes factors such as the good bacteria that live on our skin and in our digestive tract, a system of blood-borne chemicals called the complement system, and our body's thermal control system, which mounts a fever to enhance our body's other pathogen-killing functions. The inflammation response is part of our non-specific immunity. The counterpart to the non-specific immune system is the specific immunity. This means the defenses aren't a generic response, rather they're highly individualized and highly customized for each specific type of invader. The main functional units of our specific immunity are our white blood cells. I'll say a little bit more about those in the future. First, we need to continue looking at the big picture. White blood cells, like red blood cells, are formed in your bone marrow. They're also known as leukocytes from the Greek word leuko, meaning white. There are about 11 major types of white blood cells, each with a slightly different purpose. The two broad categories are white cells that generate molecules known as antibodies, which attach a little flag to any kind of pathogenic microorganisms and mark them for destruction by the other types of white blood cells. Pathogenic microorganisms are sometimes referred to as antigens because they generate an immune response. The other group are white blood cells that kill and destroy invading pathogens that have been previously marked, usually by the antibodies. In some cases, these white cells will kill or destroy our own body cells that are damaged or malfunctioning. The general term for these types are macrophages, which means big eaters. Among the key organs that are involved, we have specific organs and we have specific immune layers. First up are the bones. What, you say? How can our bones be part of the immune system? They're the deepest tissue in our body and they're protecting us from things on the outside. Well, it turns out the bone marrow inside the bones makes all our blood cells, including the red cells that carry oxygen to tissues, and the white cells that are one of our main parts of our immune system. They do so under control from the kidneys, which is probably the next organ you may not be aware of, is also part of our immune system. The kidneys respond to a number of signals in the rest of the body and make a hormone called erythropoietin. This hormone triggers the bone marrow to produce more stem cells. These become highly specialized in their development to make whatever type of blood cell the body needs. The next organ to be aware of is our thymus gland. This organ sits right behind our sternum or our breastbone and in front of our heart. The thymus is responsible for a very key job of training all our white cells to do one key aspect of their job, which is to distinguish between invading pathogens and our body's own cells and tissues. This is sometimes referred to as the self versus non-self test. For white blood cells going to school in the thymus gland, this is a pretty brutal test. You get one chance, and if you flunk by attacking one of our own body cells, they are instantly killed and destroyed. The liver is a major contributor of non-specific immunity, forming many, if not all, the molecules in our complement system. Very quickly, the four layers of the immune system are the skin, the mucous membranes, the lymphatic system, and the blood-borne system. The skin provides a two-way physical barrier. It will directly keep out most invaders and keeps in our vital body fluids. The skin also carries a layer of molecules known as secretory immunoglobulin A, or IgA for short. Another defensive barrier on our skin are the layer of good bacteria that live symbiotically with us, mostly in the category of Staph aureus. These staph bacteria are quite efficient at killing other bacteria we may encounter. Unfortunately, the overuse of antibiotics in general has created Staph aureus bacteria that are immune or resistant to antibiotics, and they can cause pathogenic disease now. Mucous membranes form the lining of our body cavities. In essence, you can think of these as our internal skin. At all our body openings, such as our mouth or nose, as the skin moves from the outside to the inside, its structure changes slightly. It contains far less of our natural waterproofing compound called keratin. It also contains far more of a type of cell that secretes mucus. Mucus sometimes gets a bad reputation. This is the sticky substance that runs out of our nose when we're fighting off a cold. This, however, is exactly its job. The mucus secreted by our mucous membranes is intended to trap pathogenic bacteria and carry them out of the body. Another factor present on mucous membranes is the same type of IgA we secrete on our skin. On mucous membranes, especially the lining of our digestive tract, we secrete far higher levels of secretory IgA, and this serves as a really vital part of the defenses of our body. The next layer to be aware of is your lymphatic system. As a subset of the immune system, it is definitely the least well understood portion of one of the least understood systems in our body. Just as will be the case in every organ and tissue we discuss in our immune system, the lymphatic system has multiple functions. Its main functions are best understood by introducing a very short concept. This is an aspect of our circulatory system and the way it actually provides oxygen and nutrients to our bodies. As the oxygen and nutrient-rich blood leaves the heart, it's carried to all the organs and tissues. The arteries branch into smaller and smaller blood vessels until they become capillaries. These are the smallest of the blood vessels, and this is where the oxygen and nutrients leave the blood to enter cells. This happens in part because capillaries are deliberately leaky. Not all the blood fluid is reabsorbed into the veins that return the blood to the heart. Some of it filters out into the spaces outside the capillaries and outside the cells. It would stay there if it weren't for our system of lymphatic ducts. The lymph ducts actually have a structure similar to veins, only they're open-ended. At the open end near the cells, that's where they suck up the fluid. And then all the lymphatic ducts gradually merge, just like veins do, becoming bigger and bigger until the lymph fluids and the lymph ducts rejoin the venous system just before it enters the heart. The blood flowing in our veins provides a bit of suction through something known as the Venturi effect that is amplified by the pumping action we receive from our muscles, which squeezes and relaxes the lymph ducts. This low-level suction is what pulls up the extra body fluid that couldn't get back into the veins, and it also pulls up cellular debris and waste and anything potentially pathogenic. As this fluid moves through the lymph ducts, it periodically enters small pockets or nodules we call lymph nodes. Inside lymph nodes are where much of our body's white cells reside permanently. After they were produced in the bone marrow, at some point, they actually leave the blood and take up permanent residence in the lymph nodes. There, they will continuously monitor the lymphatic fluid for pathogens. When we are faced with a potential infection, you may find that your lymph nodes swell up as they're performing their immune function. And these are able to be palpated whether they lie near the surface of the body, such as in our necks. Blood-borne immunity is the final and deepest layer of our immune system. If a pathogen makes it past your skin, past the mucous membranes, and past the lymphatic system, it meets our blood-borne immunity consisting of a variety of white blood cells. The details of all our types of white blood cells, how they function, and how they interact is complicated. I won't have time to get into all of that today. Let's talk next about the best ways of turning off your immune system. This may seem like a curious subject at first, but the truth is there's quite a few things many of us do in their daily lives here in the modern world that actually contribute to turning off your immune system. The first and perhaps the fastest acting and most common way of suppressing our immune system is to experience stress. Very briefly, as I will definitely do an episode about stress and your adrenal glands at some point in the future, stress is our body's automatic response when your nervous system detects a threat. Historically, this was most often due to one of those super large predators I mentioned earlier, such as saber-toothed tigers trying to eat us for lunch. In that moment, we're faced with a decision which must be made extremely quickly, faster even than we are capable of thinking about consciously. We can either run away or we can fight the tiger. We might run up a tree, down a hole, into a cave, or if there's nowhere we can run to, our only other option is to grab a rock or a club or some other weapon and fight the tiger. While fighting a saber-toothed tiger barehanded with nothing more than a rock or tree branch as a weapon sounds difficult, hard to comprehend by today's standards, you need to remember just one thing. Our ancestors were very good at it. Now, how do we know that? How do I know that? How do I know your ancestors were good at fighting tigers? It's very simple. We're here. We are alive today because our ancestors were very good at the fight or flight reaction. Anyone back in the day who wasn't good at it probably didn't leave descendants. That's the basic premise of the fight or flight reaction. Our nervous system detects a threat, then certain things happen. We have an automatic reflex action involving a mix of neurotransmitters and hormones which have a certain set of effects in our bodies. They increase blood flow and therefore oxygen and energy to our muscles and lungs, which we need in order to either fight or run. We need more oxygen in either case. These hormones and neurotransmitters also decrease blood flow and oxygen to virtually every other organ in the body, essentially turning them off. This includes the digestive system, for example, because we don't want to waste any energy trying to digest our lunch when we're trying to survive the next few seconds and avoid being the tiger's lunch. Among the organs that are turned off, you guessed it, your immune system. When a fight or flight reaction is over and we survive, it usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes for the body to recover and the hormones and neurotransmitters to reset themselves to the baseline level. After this 30 minutes or so, our body can resume its normal functioning. Here in our modern world, it isn't all uncommon for people to have a stress response of some type more frequently than every 30 minutes. In a 1-hour commute in busy traffic, it can happen constantly. Working in the modern business world, we can have upsetting phone calls or emails several times an hour. Irate customers can be in your face almost constantly. Our body's nervous system just doesn't know the difference between being chased by a tiger, which is truly life-threatening, or being yelled at by an angry customer, which, while annoying, usually isn't life-threatening. Our body sees no difference in those, at least as far as our automatic nervous system is concerned. What that means, in turn, is that if we're under a constant state of stress, our bodies never have a chance to fully recover. That leaves our immune organs in a constant off state in which we are more susceptible to any infectious microorganism that may happen to come along. The next way most people turn off their immune system is with sugar. By this, I mean refined sugar, whether it's white sugar or brown sugar or powdered sugar. Even white flour qualifies as a refined simple carbohydrate, and therefore biochemically it has the same effect in your body. These high levels of refined sugars have two important effects in your body. Number one, they make your internal body fluids more acidic, which the pathogenic bacteria seem to like and the rest of your body doesn't. And two, high levels of white sugar actually suppress your body's white cell function. Let's talk now about the best ways of boosting your immune system. There's actually dozens of ways you can boost your immune system. Some of the major categories are nutrients, foods, herbs, homeopathic remedies, home hydrotherapy using alternating hot and cold water in different ways is another category. Today, I'm going to talk about just one thing because it's one of the most important, and that's vitamin C. Vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid, has a number of beneficial effects in our bodies. Two specific ones I want to mention here today are, first, it's used by your adrenal glands, your fight or flight response organ, more than any other organ in your body. That's actually a bit surprising when we consider that the liver is your body's main biochemical factory. It makes a host of other molecules used by every other organ and tissue in your body. The adrenal gland, however, uses more vitamin C even than your liver. This is one of the key nutrients your body uses to keep the adrenal gland strong and counteract the effects of stress on your body. Remember, we just talked about stress as being a mechanism that turns off the immune system. So we help keep the adrenal glands happy. That happens a lot less frequently. Second, vitamin C is absorbed directly into your white blood cells. The ability of your white cells to function properly is in large part determined by how much intracellular vitamin C they absorb. The more vitamin C, the better the white cell function and a better and faster immune system response. Whenever I feel myself starting to come down with any cold or flu-like symptoms, first thing I do is dramatically increase my vitamin C intake well above my daily baseline. As a result, I very seldom get cold or flu-like illnesses which debilitate me. Vitamin C would be the first recommendation I have for everyone when they feel like they're starting to experience the first symptoms of illness. The second would be to completely eliminate all forms of refined sugar and any foods that use them as an ingredient. Now, in this short podcast today, there's absolutely no way I can do this subject justice. My main purpose here is to remind you that you have an immune system. It can and will defend you against almost all invading pathogens, provided we give it what it needs and take away what it doesn't. Next, I want you to start becoming aware of things you can do to keep your immune system strong and things you should stop doing which weakens your immune system, such as eating refined sugar. Because there's so much to learn about this, and accurate knowledge about your immune system is so vitally important right now, I have a course coming up which covers this material in depth. The class will be online on February 5th, 2022. It is 6 hours in length, and it covers subjects such as the history of infectious diseases. I go through all the different types of the most common pathogens, those little things that want to invade and eat you. I go in depth into your immune organs, your immune glands, and the immune layers. I talk about all the nutrients to keep your immune system functioning, all the things you should do and to avoid doing that might inhibit your immune system. And I talk about different protocols for treating different types of pathogens if you've been exposed. So, kind of in conclusion, when the mainstream media starts contradicting 50 to 75 years of well-established, well-researched science that your immune system can easily defend you against most disease-causing microorganisms, it is definitely time to be more proactive and take charge of your own education and your own health. That's why I'm offering this course. You can read about it on my website, www.drcagesays.org. Click on the button at the top of the page for events and classes, and the immune class is the very first one there. Feel free to look at the others as well. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast so you automatically get all the updates and get notified when I upload the next one. You can subscribe to it at drcagesays.podbean.com. Note there is no www at the front of this address. You'll get an error message. drcagesays.podbean.com. On my website, you can also read about my book, Heal Your Life, Heal the World, which presents all the information you need to upgrade your health and consciousness and introduce yourself to a new, more holistic, more effective lifestyle. That's it for today, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I hope you tune in to my future podcasts. This is Dr. Cage wishing you good health.